Prometheus knew a secret that could have saved Zeus from repeating his own father's exact mistake, and he almost didn't tell him. This is the story of the Titan who defied Zeus openly, was tortured for centuries because of it, and still might have saved the king of the gods anyway. The same Titan who, by some accounts, shaped humanity out of clay with his own hands, and then spent millennia paying for what he gave them. Prometheus was a Titan, son of Iapetus and the Oceanid Clymene, technically part of the same generation Zeus overthrew in the Titanomachy. But unlike his brothers Atlas and Menoetius, who fought alongside Kronos and the other Titans, Prometheus sided with Zeus from the very beginning. His name means forethought, and true to that name, he apparently saw which side of that war was going to win and positioned himself accordingly, while his brother Prometheus, whose own name means the exact opposite, afterthought, never seemed to see anything coming until it had already happened. It's a detail ancient sources return to again and again. Of the two brothers, one always planned ahead and the other never did. And that single difference ends up shaping nearly every myth attached to either of them. According to several ancient sources, most notably the philosopher Protagoras and the poet Ovid, Prometheus is directly credited with shaping the first humans out of clay and water, molding them, in some versions, in the image of the gods themselves. His brother Prometheus was tasked with a separate job first, assigning useful traits to every animal on Earth: claws, fur, speed, venom, thick hides, sharp senses. By the time he reached humanity, last in line, he'd run out of gifts to give. Humans stood naked, clawless, and slow compared to almost everything else Prometheus had already equipped. Prometheus compensated by giving humans upright posture and reasoning intelligence instead, and in some tellings, by stealing a spark of divine fire from the god's own hearth to animate them, setting them apart from every other creature either brother had helped bring into being, and making Prometheus, more than any other single figure in this mythology, directly responsible for what a human being actually is. Prometheus's first real conflict with Zeus began over a sacrifice. At a gathering in Mecone, meant to formally settle what gods and mortals each owed one another going forward, Prometheus was tasked with dividing a slaughtered bull between the two. He split it into two portions. One wrapped the bones in glistening white fat, making it look like the far better cut. The other hid the actual meat and organs beneath the plain, unappetizing stomach lining. He offered Zeus first choice. Zeus, despite apparently seeing through the trick immediately, chose the fat-wrapped bones anyway, deliberately, according to Hesiod, so he'd have a permanent grievance to hold against humanity. The choice became ritual precedent for every future sacrifice. Gods received bones and fat burned in offering. Humans kept the meat for themselves. It was a bargain humanity would benefit from for the rest of mythological history, but one that earned Prometheus his king's genuine, lasting anger the moment he made it. In retaliation, Zeus withheld fire from humanity entirely, leaving people cold, vulnerable, and unable to cook meat or forge metal tools of their own. Prometheus, unwilling to let his creation suffer for his own trick, stole a burning ember from Olympus, in some versions taken directly from Hephaestus's forge, in others from the sun's own chariot, smuggled it to Earth, hidden inside a hollow fennel stalk, and gave it directly to humanity. It was an act of open, deliberate defiance against the king of the gods, done with full knowledge of what it would cost him. Every future forge, hearth, and human civilization built on metalwork traces back to that single smuggled ember. And this time, Zeus's punishment would not be a withheld resource. It would be permanent. Before we get to exactly what that punishment looked like, if this channel's telling the true stories the myths tend to leave out, hit subscribe now, because the next one might be the hardest thing Zeus ever did to another god. This punishment gets its own telling from Zeus's side later on this channel, but from Prometheus's own experience. He was chained with unbreakable bonds to a remote mountain peak in the Caucasus, at the literal edge of the known world in the Greek imagination. Each day, an eagle, sometimes named directly as Zeus's own sacred bird, arrived to tear open his side and devour his liver, organ chosen specifically because ancient Greek physicians believed it was the seat of human emotion and the one organ capable of regenerating itself. Each night, the liver regrew completely, only to be eaten again the next day, endlessly, with no end point built into the sentence at all. As an immortal titan, Prometheus couldn't die from it, no matter how many times it happened. He simply had to endure it, for what ancient sources, including Aeschylus, suggest was thousands of years, a punishment designed not to kill him, but to make sure he could never stop suffering it. Zeus wasn't finished. Furious that punishing Prometheus hadn't undone the damage of fire reaching humanity, Zeus devised a second punishment aimed at humanity itself, as collective payback for what one Titan had given them. He ordered Hephaestus to shape Pandora, the first mortal woman, out of earth and water, and had her gifted by each god in turn with beauty, curiosity, and persuasive charm. Along with a sealed jar she was forbidden under any circumstance to open. Prometheus, aware of exactly how Zeus's gifts tended to work, warned his brother Epimetheus never to accept anything from the king of the gods. Epimetheus, true to his name, accepted Pandora anyway. She eventually opened the jar, later mistranslated across centuries as a box, releasing disease, old age, suffering, and hardship out into a world that had never known any of them before. Only hope remained trapped inside once the lid was closed again, and ancient sources still argue over whether that was mercy or one final cruelty. Was humanity spared endless hope, or robbed of it entirely? Here's where Prometheus's story connects directly back to Zeus's own deepest fear, a prophecy this channel will get to properly in Zeus's own episode down the line. That a child of his would one day overthrow him, just as he'd overthrown Kronos, and Kronos had overthrown Uranos before that. Prometheus, chained and suffering, possessed a secret Zeus desperately needed, the identity of a sea nymph, Thetis, whose son was destined to grow far greater than his father, whoever that father turned out to be. If Zeus pursued her, as he'd pursued so many mortal and divine women before, he would be creating the exact instrument of his own downfall with his own hands. For years, by most accounts, Prometheus withheld this information even under continued torture before eventually revealing it, sparing Zeus from repeating Kronos' fate, ensuring Thetis was instead married off to the mortal hero Peleus, and, by some accounts, factoring directly into Prometheus's own eventual release. That release finally came generations later during Heracles' labors. Passing near the Caucasus on an unrelated errand, Heracles killed the eagle with a single arrow and broke Prometheus's chains, an act done with Zeus's ultimate approval, not defiance of it, marking a genuine, if extremely delayed, reconciliation between the king of the gods and the Titan who had defied him for humanity's sake. Some sources add a final condition to the release. Because an immortal being's chain technically couldn't simply be broken without consequence, the wounded centaur Chiron, suffering an incurable injury of his own, voluntarily traded his own immortality to the fates in exchange for Prometheus's freedom. One suffering immortal buying peace for another. In the closest thing this myth has to a genuinely selfless act. Much of what we know about Prometheus comes from Hesiod's Theogony and Works and Days, and the playwright Aeschylus, whose tragedy Prometheus Bound dramatizes the punishment directly, portraying Zeus as genuinely tyrannical rather than simply just. Prometheus's legacy has echoed for millennia beyond ancient Greece itself. Mary Shelley subtitled Frankenstein, "The Modern Prometheus." The poet Percy Shelley wrote an entire drama called Prometheus Unbound, and his name still gets invoked today anytime a scientific or technological breakthrough is framed as a double-edged gift, dangerous and liberating at once. He gave humanity fire, reasoning, and upright dignity, suffered centuries of torture for it, and still, when the moment came, may have quietly saved the very god who tortured him, not out of submission, but because unlike Zeus, unlike Kronos before him, Prometheus never let fear decide who deserved to be helped. We've now covered Kronos. Next, the Titan condemned to hold up the sky itself, Atlas, and the price of losing a war he barely started. Subscribe so you don't miss it.